Hi, I'm Rob.
And I'm Rob,
And welcome to the Help Me, I'm Middle-Aged podcast.
where you can find fun, exciting things about being middle-aged.
Oh, you're going to find things about us and about yourself you never thought you knew.
Hold on, come along for the ride. It's going to be fun.
Welcome to the Help Me, I'm Middle-Aged podcast. My name is Rob.
And I'm Rob too.
And today we have Mike Patasso. He is a acquaintance of mine. We met over the summer and we were having a great conversation. He has a very interesting life. He's around our age, the Help Me, I'm Middle-Aged demo. Young guy. And he has a great history. He has some amazing experiences with his former career. And he agreed to come on and talk about it. And we're so excited. So, Mike, if you just explain like where you went to school, how you got into broadcasting, and how that whole process worked, and it's really, I'm really excited about this episode.
I come from the Bronx, so I actually, believe it or not, only 5'7". I was offered a scholarship to play basketball at Iona College. I was a New York City all-city point guard in 1978.
Wow.
So I was originally going to school for engineering at Manhattan College. But then this came along, and I had a chance for my parents to save money, so I said, I'll go there. But they didn't teach engineering at Iona at the time. So they had communications. I was like, oh, that's pretty cool, you know, be a television director maybe one day, things like that. So that's what graduated with an associate's. And some people went on for their 4-year degree, but I figured, well, if I landed a job, maybe the company could pay for my bachelor's degree, where I then ended up working. So, of course, I get out there. I do an internship at NBC, and then I graduated. And, of course, that's the first place I went back and put an application in. And then I went to all of the major networks at the time, which was 2, 4, and 7.
All right.
And then I went to, you know, Channel 5, Channel 9, Channel 11, the independent stations, as they called it. And then one thing is set up, and I think I told Rob this story. I went to a guy. I went to NBC, which was on 50th and 6th. And then directly across the street at the time was the Exxon building. And so I had an interview there. And this guy had one big office space with a whole bunch of videotape decks and a blackboard, because they didn't have whiteboards in 1980. And he had Sunday through Saturday, and he had all these movies listed. And he said, I need somebody that can air movies, rewind them, and every day, if it's on a Monday, you take it and you bring it to next Sunday. So it's like a week before it moves again. So I said, that's it? He goes, yeah, you work 4 10-hour days and that's it. I go to CBS that same day and I put an application in. Long story short is that I got hired on the elevator.
Wow.
I got hired on the elevator. I met a guy on the elevator. I was all nervous, looking for personnel, not HR, personnel. And guy was really nice, and I told Rob the story too. We probably have kids close to the same age, maybe some of yours are older than mine, but there was a movie Monsters Inc. And if you remember that, there was that woman who was like, hey, Wachowski, you know, she had his voice, right? And I get off the elevator and there's a desk and she's sitting right there and she's like, are you getting off? And I was like, yeah, I'm getting off. She made me so friggin' nervous. And I had to go see her like 3 times because of all the information on the application. Long story short, the guy had given me a business card and she says, hold on, this guy's going to come down. The guy comes down in the elevator. I see him again. He asked me how it was. I said, okay. He goes, come on upstairs. Oh, you type 85 words a minute. I'm like, yeah. So I type this up. I type it up. It says, this an interview? He goes, just type up. Looks at it, he goes, oh, pretty good. Hardly any mistakes at all. So he goes, do you do teleprompter? I said, yeah. So I load it on the machine. He reads it. He calls me. He goes, I'll give you a call in the week. I says, what was this for? He goes, I need a teleprompt operator for the Captain Kangaroo show.
Wow.
I end up like 4 days later, I get a call to be a teleprompter operator on the Captain Kangaroo show. Here I am working at CBS TV right out of college. Like that's like unheard of.
Wow. 57th, right?
Huh? 57th and 11th. Yeah, 57th and 11th.
Yeah.
So while I'm waiting now to start the job, I get the call from the guy with the videotape stuff. And I said, hey, he goes, hey, have you thought about it? You interested? I was like, actually, no. I said, I just received a job at CBS. He goes, he goes, listen, he goes, if you have anybody you graduated with, I need help. That was the guy who started HBO. I would have been on the ground floor.
Oh,
Who knows
really?
what I could have been, a freaking CEO of HBO right now.
Oh.
Who knew? It was like
Oh,
cable. Who the frig's
No
looking
one's
at
doing
cable?
Hey, but Captain
Cable.
Kangaroo,
Cable.
Captain Kangaroo is good. So.
Yeah, nobody even knows who cable was. I mean, cable. You didn't even have cable in the Bronx when I was younger. And so cable, even my teacher said, you don't want to work in cable. You know, who the
my
frig
God.
knew? So that led to, I became good friends with the guy that hired me. He ended up leaving while I was still working at the show, went to work for NBC and worked on Meet the Press at NBC. We stayed
That was
friends.
before Tim Russer?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And so that's October of '80.
Oh,
And
okay.
we went on strike at CBS, and I was the low man on a totem pole from the union. So I lost my job at CBS. But the union got me a job at ABC, and I was what they call a cable puller. I follow the cameraman, and I'm just like, dishing out the cable. And when he's back, I take up the slack. And, so that was at ABC. And he's like, are they ever going to hire you? I was like, they haven't said squat, man. I don't know. So this is going on for about 3 weeks. And he goes, why don't you come down here? So we had lunch one day, and he says, what else do you do? I said, I minored in business. And he goes, okay, hold on. Guy picks up a phone, calls up. No? Oh, yeah, hold on. Comes down. He goes, oh, somebody's going to come join us. Guy comes down, introduces himself. He goes, yeah, I'm the manager of accounting. I said, oh, he goes, so he tells me you're looking for a job. I said, yes, but not in business. He goes, well, it's an in. And I was like, yeah, but I don't want to do business. He's like, yeah. And he drags me over to this board that has all these jobs that are open. He goes, see all those jobs? Cameraman, this, that. He goes, that's once you're in the company, that's what you can go for. He goes, it's going to be too difficult to get right in like this. So I started in finance, October of '80. And then by June, I became good friends with the director of personnel, and he kind of guided me. I told him where I want to be in the future. I want to be a television director and everything like that. And he led the way for me. And I told him about the job. He set up this interview, and they had a thing what they call a beach list. Cameramen would go on vacation, so they call it the beach list. And they need people to fill in. They need people to fill in. So one thing led to another. April of 1981, I became a local news cameraman. And then they kept calling me back and calling me back and calling me back. In October, there was an opening, and boom, almost within the day of getting hired at CBS, I became a local news cameraman at NBC.
Are you learning all this stuff on the fly?
I did internships at NBC.
Okay.
I worked at a station in Yonkers called ITV. It's called Instructional Television.
Okay.
We actually used to air the Davy and Goliath shows.
Oh,
Oh, right.
So like the Catholic schools would play a Davy and Goliath, right? So that's
do that, Davey.
yeah. So I used to hey Davy, and so I worked there as doing camera, and I was a switcher, being like a technical director and a lighting guy and everything. So kind of learned my craft there. NBC, I learned stuff, but you weren't allowed to touch anything because you're not in the union. You can't even just move the cable on the camera. If they say, oh, somebody's going to trip on that, well, they'll trip, step over it. You got to get a union guy to come and move the cable. You don't touch anything. So I learned stuff, but couldn't touch stuff. So it was okay. I was pretty much like a production assistant. Basically, I made sure everybody had full cups of coffee and lots of donuts. And that's basically what I did. But that led to that. And when I became a cameraman, it just one thing led after the other. I covered I've covered so many things. As a cameraman, I covered the Berlin Wall when it came down. So I actually got, those were my shots that when you see the guy with the sledgehammer chipping away at the top, those are all my feeds. That's everything they picked up from NBC, all of those feeds.
Now, wait a second, Mike. I got a question for you.
Yeah.
So, as a kid from the Bronx, this is all happening so fast. I mean, like.
Yeah, within a year, it was like everything was different for me.
But this is like a once in a lifetime. Yeah, I mean, this is a job 1,000 guys would line up all day and night just to get an interview.
And it's never going to happen again. It's just never going to happen again. It's just it was timing. I don't know. The guy at CBS turned out to be the greatest guy, and he just He saw I was a little nervous. He needed something, and he saw I had the qualifications, and he said, "Can you type?" And I said, "Yeah." And then that was it. And then boom, I'm
Good for
in.
you. That's awesome.
And the thing at HBO, well, that was just a fluke. But man, that would have been money.
So Mike, now you're in Berlin, right? Now you're filming something that's in every history book in the world, right? It's iconic, right? I mean, it's an end of an era, right? The Cold War's over, but you got a job to do. You got to get the shot. So it's a little hard to realize.
It was difficult because you have East Berlin and West Berlin, right? The borders are right there, right? And I'm with the producer, and I've told some people the story. I don't think I got that in depth with you, Rob, but I was looking to get a shot, a better shot, you know? And so I back up and I'm trying to get a shot. I'm right on the edge of West Berlin and East Berlin. There's the gates are hanging down.
Right.
There's a soldier like your size, like 6'2", right? As the machine gun is like this. And I back up and I feel this. I'm like, what the hell? And I turn around and here he is, like, you know, he's looking at me. And so I said, oh, I'm sorry. And so I move. Well, I try to back up again. And again, I'm like, what the frig? And everywhere I went, he walked parallel to me because I could not step over that line.
Right.
That was it. That was it. And then my producer goes, Mike, he's not going to let you, you can't take a step further, man. You're going to have to take, so I had to take it from my knee so it could widen out a little bit more, you know? So I basically took shots of the area, but then I happened to catch that guy chipping the wall down. They boosted him up and he started chipping away. So I zoomed in on him and that was all the coverage that I had, you know? So that just kind of went, that we'll call it viral. So that was the big deal. Other big ones, Tiananmen Square, when the guy laid in front of the tank.
No, that was,
those are all I've won UPI awards for all of that stuff.
Get out.
Wow.
Yeah, I've won UPI awards for that.
So the traveling was insane, right?
I was, I went to Iran with the prisoners when they were released.
Really?
You were in Iran?
Yeah, yeah, because nobody wanted to go. Nobody wanted to go. Everybody's like, "You crazy to go?"
And you're single at this point, right?
I'm single right out of college. I'm 19 years old.
Right.
19 years old, and because my birthday's in December, and so there I am, and I go.
So,
actually, no, I was 19 because that was in 70. That was in 80 when I went.
Right.
So that was in 80 when I went, but people didn't want to go, but we had coverage and they still said, you never know, but it was fine. I've been to Iran. I've never been to Afghanistan. I've been to Iran, Japan, Tokyo, China, so Tiananmen Square. I was at, do you remember when they caned the kid in Korea, when he wrote graffiti on the car, Singapore.
Oh, and they were going to
right.
84, something like that. Yeah, and they caned him in the middle of the square. Yeah, I was there covering that too.
Wow.
I was there covering that too. Yeah, so when my wife went to Singapore, I said, see if that monument is still in the middle of the square. They actually have like O-rings hanging from the monument. It's made of like marble or whatever. And what they would do, they would snap you onto this thing so you can't, and they shackle you up to this thing. And that's where they would, you know, whatever. When she was there, my wife, I may have said that story to you when we saw you, Rob. When my wife went there, she was there. Some guy threw acid in a woman's face.
What?
Before my wife got there. Yeah, before my wife got there, some guy threw acid in a woman's face. So now when my wife was in Singapore, it was her turn to throw acid in his face.
Wow. Eye for an eye. Wow.
Yeah, absolutely. So she's like, I'm not good. They were like, you want to go see that? She's like, no. But when that kid got caned, man, that's when the mother was trying to get President Reagan to overturn everything. But they were not having that. They were not having it. And we went there. I remember I saw this kid, man, they chained him up and they whacked him with what they call like a kempo stick, if you're into martial arts.
Right.
It's almost like a sugar cane, but then they break it so it's like, so it looks like a fan. So when they hit you, it kind of claps. Well, they hit this kid the first time, man, his back opened up like it was nothing. And he was out. They waited for him to wake up and they hit him again. He had to be awake when they hit him.
Now wait a second, Mike. So when you're there, I mean, like these countries are very much culturally different than we are, right? So you're there to cover the story.
That's it.
But they know that we are, this wouldn't fly in our country. How do they treat you?
Well, they seem to have no problems. I mean, getting into Singapore is wild. I mean, that's I don't know if you've ever been there. And I told my girlfriend, you go, it's going to be very interesting. Back in the day, you'd go there, and they don't just look at you and say, "Oh, you're a family," or "He's all." They wouldn't just say, "Nah, yeah, check his bag. No, leave them alone. Check them." No, they check in everything. And if you're a woman, they don't do the feel thing like this. It's stuff is just like. Papers are flying, so bras, underwears, everything is going all over the place.
Wow.
But when they got my camera, they'd take it and they slammed the frig. I was like, whoa, easy. Next day, the guys are running over with machine guns. I'm like, it's just easy. It's $70,000. The lens alone, just easy. They open it up, they're taking it out. They're flipping this thing around. I'm like, don't break my lens.
Right.
They're talking Korean, and I can't say a word to them. And I'm like, I'm giving them my press pass, and I was like, easy. And then finally they put it back and they let you go. Then you got to read the rules of the country. They give you like a few things. Back then, no gum chewing.
Yeah.
No
I
gum
heard
chewing.
they still don't have gum, right?
Yeah. There's ashtrays everywhere. My wife, she says when she was there, people in the morning were spray cleaning the stop signs and everything. It's so clean. The streets you can eat literally off the streets and the sidewalks. There's ashtrays at like every corner, the big stand-up ones. You drop a cigarette butt in the street and you get caught, you get a fine. Drop another one, they know you had a fine, you get a bigger fine. You do the same thing, you get a third one, you go to jail for like 15 days. It's no joke,
Wow.
And then if you try to bring in or leave, and then of course it's almost like an eye for an eye. It's almost like the Middle East, I mean, I don't think they castrate you if you rape somebody, but I don't know. That wasn't in the rules, but I'm sure it's pretty close. And if you try to bring in or leave the country with illegal contraband, you will be executed. And you can't just say like, okay, 3, 5, and 7, I'm cool with that. 1, 2, 4, 6, and 8 don't apply to me. No. You sign, and if you don't sign it, the next plane, wherever it's going, you're escorted out of the country. No joke.
Wow.
No joke. So Singapore was worse than anything. It was fun. But I've covered many stories. I was a cameraman for Saturday Night Live. I was a cameraman for News 4 New York. I was a cameraman on the Donahue Show. I was a cameraman on Letterman. That's studio. But field-wise, I was local news. I've done a lot of local news. So I did a lot of local news, but I was also a network cameraman, and that's when I was traveling around the world.
So when you're on SNL and you're the camera guy, right? I mean, it's a little hard sometimes not to laugh. Like, do you catch yourself chuckle?
Everybody laughs. Everybody laughs. You just have to keep listening for when it's your shot. That's all. Don't miss the shot because it is live. It is live. I mean, it's no joke. It's a live show. We do they call it a dress rehearsal. We do a 7:30. I'm still there, but we do a 7:30 dress rehearsal, and then whatever jokes don't go over too well, we don't use them in the live show. We come up with another set of jokes. And, that'll be used. So you may, if you went to a show and you went to the dress rehearsal, and then if you got home in time to see the live show, you may or may not see the same skits you saw when you were there.
Interesting.
It's according to the audience response.
Different audiences, right? I guess.
Different audiences for both shows. Yeah. But then again, if there's no good responses at the dress rehearsals,
right,
then they're not going to use that skit. Like if it just doesn't go over, they're like, no, go with the other one. And then they just hope that the other one's better than the first one.
Hmm.
So the whole show doesn't get changed. Maybe a few skits. That's right. All. So
what was there ever like a big blow up that you had in SNL, like a catastrophe?
Oh, not me personally, but 1986.
Yeah.
They fired the whole staff.
Right.
Charles Rocket, because he said the word F.
Yep.
And so that was it. Censorships went crazy. Grant Tinker was the president at the time, and he said that he was married to what's her name? Mary Tyler Moore. That was that was his wife.
Okay.
And he had no part of that, man. That was same thing. He's the reason that what's his name? Howard Stern he got let go. Tinker wasn't taking any of that crap.
Right.
So
right.
Stern got let go. Charles Rocket dropped the F-bomb, and the whole crew got fired. Well, except us that worked for NBC, but
Right.
the whole staff, the acting staff, all gone.
Did you ever go down in the old WNBC radio at the bottom of the rock there and see any of why that was, did you ever down there?
No. I mean, it was on one of my floors at the time. I was a manager of scenic design and graphic arts. So that was right on my same floor. It was the studio side. If you came up the middle banks, it was the studio. I was on the west banks, my office then. But I could walk around and I'd see Stern and what's his name, WNBC. He just
Don Imus.
Don Imus. I used to see him too. WNBC. So yeah, I mean, it was all right. It was exciting to see people. That's why I had, I gotta, give me 1 second. I'm gonna show you something. I think you guys will like this.
WNBC.
NBC, yeah.
Was that Pig Vomit?
No. Imus used to say the WNBC.
But was that the one though? The Pig Vomit for the.
Yeah. Hold on, I can't see yet.
Let's see if you can read this.
Oh, Saturday Night Live. Okay, it can barely make it out because your background.
But
there it is. Yeah.
That's the original jacket from the show.
Oh wow!
That's the original jacket from the show. I still have it. I have my Letterman jacket, and I have my Saturday Night Live jacket.
Did you hang out with any of the stars ever?
Oh yeah. I mean, when I met my wife, she said she thought I looked like Tony Danza. She said.
Right.
You kind of do.
And him and I were pretty close friends because I was a Golden Glove boxer and I was a kickboxer, and he actually was a pro boxer in real life.
Yeah,
right. He's from Brooklyn.
He was from Brooklyn, yeah, and I hung out in Brooklyn all the time, and we just knew the same areas and visited the same places and stuff, and we became pretty good friends. Anytime he was anywhere, always talked to me and everything like that. So when I met my wife, I was working on SNL, and I said, okay, so if you want, I'll come to the show late. So she came to the show. I says, and come to the late show, you watch the show, and then we're going to have a party, end of season party in the ice skating rink, but there's no ice at the time. Obviously, it's just down in the rink. So she came to the show, and I made her go downstairs because by the time we break the show down, it ends at 1. By the time we put everything to set away and everything, lock the cameras down, it's about 2:00 in the morning.
Wow.
So she was down there with one of my buddy's wives, and they're hanging out. So we're all hanging out. And I'm walking. I said, "You know who that is?" And she's looking. She's like, "No." I'm like, "It's Paul Simon." And do you know who that is? No. It's like, it's Ringo Starr. She's like, "Oh my God!" Like she has no clue. So when I saw Tony, I was like, I saw him. He waved and I waved, and I said, "Okay, so I want to bring you over to meet somebody." And I brought her. I says, "Hey, Tony, this is the girl I was talking about." He goes, "Oh." She's like, "Oh," and she just like flips out. She's like, "Oh my God, it's Tony Danza," Like so. Yeah, it was pretty cool. It was pretty cool. I mean, I have somewhere in there, I got a shirt from Tom Selleck. He gave me a shirt because I remember meeting him on Letterman. I said, you live in Hawaii? He goes, only during the taping. I says, because I love Hawaiian shirts, but you can't find a nice Hawaiian shirt. And at the time, there was Tommy Bahama really wasn't around.
Right.
I said, so he goes, yeah. So that was that. And then when next time he was on Letterman, his manager saw me, and the guy, he goes, "Are you Mike?" I'm like, "Yeah," because I was the stage manager at the time on Letterman, and I would mic the cameras. I was the guy who would point to the camera, whatever camera you're going to look at, right? And he goes, "Yeah." He goes, "So this is for you." And I was like, "What's that?" He goes, "Oh, Mr. Selleck said to give that to you." Mr. Selleck. And he goes, "Tom Selleck." I went, "Oh," and because I didn't think about it. I mean, he's on the show, so I opened the bag and I pull it. It's like has nice like tiger lilies on it and everything like that. It's a really cool shirt. I was like,
"Oh man,
this is for me?" He goes, "Yeah." I said, "You sure?" He goes, "You're Mike, the stage manager, right?" I said, "Yeah." He goes, "It's for you." I said, "Okay." I'm put it in the bag. I leave it right next to the camera 2, which is like the middle camera. And he comes out, and I'm ready to mic him. He goes, I said, "How's everything?" He goes, "Good." He goes, "You got the shirt?" I go, "That's for me." He goes, "Yeah, you got it, right?" I said, "Yeah, it's sitting right there." And he goes, he looks at me, and Dave looks at me. He's like, "What's going on?" I said, "No." He goes, "Oh, I gave Mike a little gift." And he told him, I says, You remembered? He goes, "Yeah, you said you like Hawaiian shirts, right?" I was like, "Yeah."
Wow.
"I got you." I was like, "Hey, you remembered me?" I was like, for me, that was like a big deal. This guy could.
That's classy.
Yeah, I was like, of all the people, I was like, I couldn't Couldn't be more excited. You know, it was.
But that shows a testament to his character. I mean, you know,
He
none
seems
of
like
us
a nice
ever.
guy.
He seems like
He
a
does.
nice guy. You know,
He does.
really
He does. We talk, right? I told you about total a-holes that I've
Right,
worked with.
right,
Yeah,
right,
I mean,
right.
Sinatra's. Sorry, guys, but Sinatra's right up there at the top. Total,
Really?
total, total,
No-
total, total.
No time for you.
No, not no time. Just rude and nasty. I mean, you would think we were working for him. He did a show in about '84. He recorded a show at NBC. He's screaming at people. I'm like, does he know that we don't work for him? Does he know that? You know, because he was getting up in age.
Yeah.
You know, and he needed more reverb to carry his notes a little bit. You know, he's screaming and cursing at people. I'm like, this guy, that might work in Hoboken, but not here.
But you know, then I remember hearing someone tell stories when he was out in Palm Springs. He would go to a restaurant and then he would leave a tip for the entire kitchen staff.
I've heard lots of things like that.
You know what I mean? So
yeah.
you know.
I know.
Yeah, you know.
And
it's good and bad,
apparently,
right?
he picked up. He paid a tab that D. Martin owed somewhere, and he paid it for him. I was like, I don't believe. We've always been D. Martin fans. We're not Sinatra fans in my house. We're D. Martin fans. 'Cause my father has the same little quaff that he used to have, you know. But yeah, no. But again, believe it or not, what's it? Not Gladys Knight. Who am I thinking of? Tina Turner.
Yeah.
Nasty.
Really?
Nasty. Yeah. Nasty.
Wow.
Another nasty, nasty one.
Wow.
Do you think you caught these people on bad days, or you think they're
I
just?
don't know, man.
She used to be on Oprah, man. Oprah loved her. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, of course. I mean, look, everybody on the set's going to like it. It just to the crew and the people around them. They think, and you have to kiss their ass because they are talent.
Right.
They are talent, but you know, they just talk. You know, you try to mic them, and it's like, don't touch me. Like, well, how am I supposed to put the mic on? I mean, if you want to run it up the back of your blouse and then there and clip, I'll show you. Just take it, and I said, you just take it. You see the fish clip, and it clips right on. So if you want to run it underneath, she goes, yeah, I'll take it from you, and she just yanks it, things like that. I'm like, and then I'm like, I need you to count 1 to 10, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, a little bit slower. So then I have to tell the guy in the audio booth, give her a count, you know, to get her so you could see what level she's at. It just you know, they just don't care. Just don't care. Nasty.
Wow.
Other people would be like, what do you need me to do? You know, I got in my little box over here. I was going through stuff and I found so many autographs I have, like Milton Berle and Bob Hope. And
Wow.
Cool.
Yeah. So it's pretty cool. I have.
Hey, were you on Letterman when things were blowing up with like Johnny? You know, that situation?
No, I wasn't there. Yeah, no. After that, no. I still at that point. Yeah, at that point, that was what
91, 92?
91. Yeah, no, I wasn't on Letterman anymore after that.
Okay.
But I still have the late night jacket. That's the next one I have in my jacket.
Wow.
The old blue and gold late night.
Right.
I still have that. I still have that.
That's awesome. That's
but,
so.
you know,
So when you were there, like you told me, you used to live in Manhattan. Like,
yeah,
being a single guy working, like, I mean, it must have been like really cool.
I was the
Like,
80s. What can I say? The 80s were the times, man.
Right.
The 80s. That was it. You know, living in Manhattan, working in Manhattan, being able to walk to work, things like that. It was the best.
And what kind of work? I mean, that's the greatest. Sounds like the most fun.
I tell my kids, you know, there's going to be jobs that you just do, and then they'll end up a job that you like, and then eventually you'll get a job that you love. And I love television. When they used to say, Mike, you think you could stay another hour or someone's running out? Yeah, it wasn't the overtime, and the money was there. 15% of my salary was overtime every year.
Wow.
15, and we're talking making in 1982, $65,000 a year.
That's good money.
Yeah.
That's 82.
Yeah,
you know,
that's really good.
That's really good money. That's really good money.
You know, and by the time I was and then, you know, and then and they're talking cameramen. We're not talking, and I'm in 3 different unions. So when I was at CBS, I was in what they call IATSE, and that's the International Association of Television and Stage Engineers. And when I went to NBC, I was in NABET, which is National Association of Broadcast Engineers and Technicians. So I'm in that union. Then when I became a stage manager, I'm in Directors Guild. So
Right.
stage managers, not technical directors, but stage managers and directors are in Directors Guild. Technical directors, like when I would switch to cameras, when they go take camera 2, and I would do all the special dissolves and the fades and this and that. Those are all in NABIT. That's all National Association of Broadcast Engineers and Technicians. So audio, cameraman, graphic guys, whatever, that's all NABIT. That's all NABIT. But stage hands too are in a different union. They're in IATSE. Stage managers and directors are in DGA, Directors Guild. I'm in 3 different unions.
Now, Mike, tell a story, because this is very interesting. So Mike comes from a family from the Bronx. Your dad owned a business, right?
Yep.
And with sanitation, right?
They were builders, and then my father retired, and then he decided to buy a sanitation business.
Right.
My father was more than he could take.
So Mike's working, like, television, this, that, the other thing, and then he gets a call. He's got to go move a dumpster.
That's right. You remember that, right? Yeah.
I mean, you could not think of 2 most different worlds. You know what I'm saying? You go from television, you go to start a truck in the Bronx and move a dumpster.
I used to I'd work from 5:30 in the morning to 1:30 in the afternoon, with an hour lunch, 5:30 to 1:30 every day.
Wow.
And by the time I get back, either drive to my parents' house in the Bronx or take a train up there. And, but if I drove, I'd go to my house, then I go to my father's garage. And like, he might just say, what are you doing? What are you doing? And then, and he'd have one of those days like, you think you could pick up a container for me? Or can you take a container to Staten Island? Or can you take a container to Jersey? And it's 4 o'clock in the afternoon. I'm trying to get through the Lincoln Tunnel with a roll-off truck. That's just, but it's my father. Was I going to say no?
No,
you don't
absolutely.
say no. You can't say no. He would have said okay, but just don't say.
But when you think of the different worlds you were in, you follow me? Like, you're in this television prestige stuff, and then you're helping the family business. You know what I mean?
And at the same time, right, and then right around 81, I had to be at NBC a year. And that's, I was taught, like I said, I became very good friends with the personnel director. And the one thing he said, he goes, and he asked me, he goes, so Mike, you have your bachelor's? And I said, no. I said, I only have my associates. I told him how it worked. He goes, well, we'll pay for your bachelor's degree. So he goes, you should immediately go back while you still can. While you're young, I would do it. So I went to New York University. So I have a bachelor's from New York University. So they ended up paying for it. It took me 3 years of night school, but
you got it done.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
So I'm an NYU graduate, because I said when I get my bachelor's, I want it from something prestigious that at least when somebody looks at my resume, they say, oh, but here I am. I've changed careers. How many times have I changed careers, Rob? 3 times?
I know.
What is it, 3? It's at least 3. At least 3.
So the other thing I wanted to tap on, because I thought it was very interesting, you had this career choice, and you chose. They gave you an opportunity, and you went to work with the Olympics. Well, what Olympics was that?
So at the time, that was 88.
So that was Atlanta, right? Was that Atlanta?
No. That's Seoul, Korea, and Seoul, Korea. That was the summer, and the winter was Calgary.
Oh, okay.
So he approached me, same guy, the director of personnel. And at the time, I was director for News 4 New York. I was the television director. I was directing News 4 New York and Nightly News.
When you say directing, what does that mean?
I'm the guy who calls all the shots. Get ready to take camera 2, take 2. Ready to roll VTR 3, roll VTR 3, and take So I'm the one who tells the cameraman what shots to take. Get a close up. Get a close-up of, we used to call them Suck and Chew instead of Chuck and Sue.
Right. Chuck Scarborough, Sue. What was their last name? Sue?
Sue Simmons and Chuck Scarborough.
Yeah.
But you can't imagine that all the laughing, and we had bets who was going to be the first one to screw up.
Right.
You're looking at them.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. You're looking at them, Zoom in on Suck. It's like, what? Yeah, and his manager and the producer, they turned, they're like, what? I said, zoom in on Chuck. They said, is that what you said? I said, yeah. And you hear the camera guys there. If you blow once, it's yes. If you blow twice, it's no, because you're not allowed to speak at all. The only people I talk are the stage manager and me. That's it.
Right.
This way. There's no other chatter, and that's what we'd call it, chatter. So you all of a sudden you start to hear, like, no, you didn't say Chuck. You said you were hearing double blows like from everybody, but it was. So I'm the guy who would take, say, camera 2, take an over the head shot, take an over shoulder shot. So if you ever watch, sometimes you'll see a shoulder, like if someone was standing behind me right now, zooming into you, right, Rob?
Yeah.
So that's called an over the shoulder shot. I'd be like taking over the shoulder. So we'd have a cameraman literally dolly his camera or truck his camera over and get an over the shoulder shot of Sue looking at Chuck, and Chuck's looking at Sue this way, right?
Right.
And I would ask for that. Then, and we go break to a commercial, I'd have them go up into the lights with the starburst lights as you go out into it. So I'd call all of that, I'd have to make sure that when they're saying, today in the Bronx, there was a shooting somewhere, and we have, Miguel Torres is out there. Miguel? And I'd be like ready to roll VTR2, and he'd be like, "This is Miguel Torres here," and then he says, "We have some information." They would roll a tape of something that was if I was a local cameraman, I would tape something, we send it back, and they would edit it for the news. So I would call all of that, make sure, and I would make sure, looking with the technical director, that they backed up the tape, and you got to count it. So when I'm constantly looking at the show and looking at the clock, looking at the show and looking at the clock, and I got the producer sitting next to me. They're like, all right, in 10, we got to take the tape. So I'm like, 10, okay, 10, in 5, I hear 4, 3, 2, 1, roll VTR2. So now the tape is 5 seconds back. We go to Miguel. Miguel's on that, and take it. And there it is. And there's the tape rolling.
Now, question for you, Mike. Now, in life, we got all these little roads we go down, right? So that seems to be a pretty sweet spot for, people in that industry that's a really good job. New York, biggest market in the world. I mean, it's a, gigantic station, local news station. So it's a really good spot. But yet you had this choice. Do you leave that or go do the Olympics? So tell us how that decision came about. Because that profoundly affected the rest of your career.
It did. That would have been the next step into wanting to become maybe an executive producer and getting involved in the show. And that's the top.
Yeah.
An executive producer. I mean, that's it. You are the echelon of a show. So I said, he says, Mike, it'd be okay. So I signed a contract that they would hold my job for 14 months, 16 months. And I can go off and do that. When I came back, I'd still be the director of News for New York and Live at 5 and everything else. So I went off and I became what they call a segment producer for the Olympics. What I did basically that year was I can't remember, Carl Lewis, right? He was the runner.
Right.
He had his gold shoes and everything. So I was in charge of doing a background on him. I got, like, when he ran in high school, when he did this, on his way to become to the Olympics. I met his family, did everything, did short little clips with his family and him. So I was a segment producer, did that. So I did on stuff for the winter sports, the skiers and the bobsledders and whatever else we had. So that was my job. So I went from, and then I was also in charge of, all of the equipment that was being sent there. So I had to make sure that the equipment went on to the next thing, from that stadium to the next stadium. And by the time the Olympics was over, I was already doing it for 18 months. By the time I went back and forth to Seoul, Korea, a half a dozen times, maybe more. That flight will kill you. 18 hours, that'll kill you.
They don't make you go coach, right? Business class?
No, we were first class.
Right.
But even then, even in coach, you're reclining out, man. The Korea Airlines, that was it.
That was a nice airline.
That was it. Yeah, 2 levels, piano bars.
Nice.
It was nice. But yeah, I mean, half a dozen times, if not more. Before the Olympics, during the Olympics, back and forth again. After the Olympics, clean up. So long story short, I came back and so they gave my job to somebody. I was like, well, how's that? I said, well, you should have been 16 months, 18 months. I was like, that's not my fault. That's not my fault, you know? So one thing led to another, and then go back and forth. In the interim, I win an Emmy for a producer for the
Congratulations.
for the career. Thank you. I win an Emmy for that, and then they end up telling me, well, we have something for you. You're going to be senior director in charge. We're building a studio in New Jersey. I said, New Jersey? They said, yeah. I said, what is it? It's like, it's going to be like cable NBC. It's like, cable? No. So Mike, so now I got the union trying to fight for me, but I signed the contract, so it's like my fault. And I'm like, wait a minute, you guys made me stay and send everything back and clean up the joint. Literally clean up. That meant I had to constantly check off all the cameras, everything. There was nothing left. So I'm the guy that was with every day. I had to check off everything. I was like, what do you want me to do? Then you should have brought somebody else here. So they said, you go to Jersey, you'll be. So I designed and built all of CNBC. I designed all the sets.
Englewood, right?
No, at the time, Fort Lee.
Oh, Fort Lee.
Fort Lee,
okay.
right? Yeah.
Right on.
9W.
Yeah. Well, no, 9. Well, it is 9W more or less. Yeah, you come right off the George Washington. I've got the name of the street, starts with an M, but I can't. It's not Midland. Maybe it is Midland. That's where it started. And then they moved up. I was not part of it when they moved up to Englewood Cliffs. That's on 9W. Yeah, I was already gone by then. But that was the deal. And then they said, so I stayed there. They made it worth my while as far as money. So, got that, but I kept all my union stuff on freeze. And then they thought CNBC was going to go under because they couldn't beat CNN in the ratings. And they weren't, the money, I told you that one time, Rob, is that the sales are what drives the business. So advertising. And they were on in New Jersey. They were on cable in Tokyo, but not Manhattan cable, which is so they were not on Manhattan cable. So the Merrill Lynch's, the Goldman Sachs, all those things, they're not running commercials. No one's really even watching what the hell we're airing. So
you're not on in Manhattan. You're not on anywhere.
Yeah, who cares if they were in Tokyo or England? We need New York money. And so, and then CNN was just demolishing them as far as the ratings are concerned. They were still learning how to finance, running the ticker and everything else constantly. That was a thing in itself to try to get that thing running constantly. And, it was just one thing led to another, and they offered a buyout. And I said, no, I'm not taking that. No way. So then the second wave came and they said, Mike, it doesn't look good. So what we're going to do, we're going to offer you everything we would have given you in the first one. And I was like, that doesn't, I said, I want a job back in it. I'm here, 10 and a half years, 11 years. Give me a break, man. And so I tried to get back into 30 Rock, but I think I told you that, Rob, when I went back, I was a stage manager one day. I was a, technical director another day. I was a cameraman another day. I was bouncing around. I would only know what I'm doing the day I showed up. It's like, this is not what I signed up for. And I was pissed. I told the HR guy, and they finally got me a job at Fox, which wasn't Fox then. It was WNEW. It was Channel 5.
Right.
I was like, I can't believe this, man.
What year was that? What year?
1992.
Okay.
I should still be at NBC, man. This is where I was going to stay the rest of I would have been there 40 years this year.
Wow.
October 1st would have made 40 years I was there. I was like, I can't, there's no way. But it ended up what it did, and same thing happened at Fox. Low man on a totem pole, and I was out. I was a director of their news show. So I was director for their news show, and then that was it. And I said, I'm just going to change careers. So I went back to school for computer science.
Right. So then you leave there, and then you move into, a totally new realm. You go to school, you educate yourself on computer science, you graduate.
Yep. Graduate. And Bell Labs they had an open house. I landed a job at Bell Labs down in Red Bank as a network engineer.
Oh, that was awesome. That was awesome. So how long were you there for? And what did you travel?
4 years. I was a network engineer for 2 years. I went through the whole thing from Bell Labs, Bellcore, Telcordia Technologies, and then a company called SAIC bought us out. It's because in 2000 we had to get the Bell out of our name.
Right.
So I had to get rid of
Were
that.
you Crawford's Corner down there?
No, Newman Springs Road.
Okay. Okay.
Come off exit 109 off the Parkway.
Yep.
So if you're coming southbound, you come down, make a left, go back underneath the Parkway. There's an armory or whatever on the left side. There's an office complex on the right. That's where I started.
Gotcha.
And then I worked at Monmouth Base for a while, doing some networking there for the Army.
Okay.
And then they closed that office and I moved to Homedale. So I was in Homedale for like 10 months, give or take. And then they moved me to Piscataway. So I was in Piscataway on Corporate Drive. We have one on Hose Lane, but I was on Corporate Drive. But I was a network engineer, and then I worked for my boss, and he saw that I was pretty orderly, and then he says, Mike, he goes, you're meant for something different. I was like, I was like, this isn't good.
This isn't good.
I said, well, such as what? He goes, you're more management material because you have things in order all the time. And I was like, yeah. He goes, I think we're making you a project manager. I was like, a what manager? I never heard of a project manager my whole life until then. And he goes, yeah, you're in charge of the whole project. Everything runs through you. You're in charge of everybody. I was like, really? You're a director? He goes, yeah, but you're not a director. You're a project manager. You work for me. And so that basically led to that. And then they hired a company to get us certified because we weren't certified in anything. No Microsoft, nothing like that, because we were Bell Labs.
Right.
You the best of the best, right? I mean, who needs to be certified in Microsoft? We hardly did Microsoft. We did a lot of Unix, that they call it. If you heard of Linux, Linux is like Unix. So that's basically what it was. And that led to that. So I got certified as a project manager, and I ran, they call it an extranet. So think of this. We're on the internet right now, okay? At your jobs, you're probably in an intranet. In other words, everybody can talk to everybody within the building. They don't need the internet, because now we can talk to each other inside. An extranet is where someone manages a bunch of IP addresses, and it was actually for the automobile industry. So we had Ford, GM, and Chrysler, and I can let Ford talk to someone from, say, Delco, to design something, and Chrysler can talk to Goodyear, and GM can talk to Firestone. So no one knew what the other one was doing, but Firestone could be talking to Ford and GM, but the information would never cross because it was IP addressing and had to set up what they call a subnet mask and everything like that. So I was in charge of building IP address ranges and managing everything like that. So that's what, and routers, and so I was certified in Cisco and all these other things, and that's what I did. And I loved it, and I actually liked to love IT work. I really did enjoy it. Very relaxing, no stress, none at all. No stress at all. If I worked 8 to 4 o'clock. If I showed up at 8:30, no one looked at me because they knew I was leaving at 5 anyway. So it didn't matter. My boss says, I don't care if you come in at 12 and leave at 3. When I see you on Friday morning, I want to know that this, and this is done. I don't care if you do it from home. At that time, there was no working from home. But
Right.
as long as I can get it done, that's all that mattered. And as long as everybody on my staff was able to get it done, it didn't matter. We didn't have to use vacation days if we needed a day off. We had to go bring our kids somewhere. No big deal. That meant that they knew when we got home, I had dial-up. But as long as I was doing something at home to get that work done, so that Friday morning when we all had a meeting, I had work to do too. That when I'd say, okay, we had to do A, B, C, and D. What did you get done? You got everything done? Good. What is it? You need help with that one? Did you reach out to somebody? See, yeah, I have this. They told me today I'll get the answer. Okay, fine. So by the end of today, that's all going to be done, right? Yeah, that's all my boss cared about. That's all. So it was no stress. No
So
stress.
Mike, you had these two very different careers, right?
Yeah.
So which one did it
Television will always be at the top.
Yeah, the sexy of the television.
There's no replacing what I did there. There's just
Sure.
the people I met, the things I did, the places I've been. You can't. They're done. Like nobody is that. Like now, they don't even hire people no more. Everything is 1099. There's no employees.
Right.
One guy that I know is still there. He retired. But he ended up in news. He was in the news department, and he was in finance. And I said, so Mauro, what is it like? He's a Filipino guy. Because I'd go down there and go to the credit union. I wouldn't see anybody. The cafeteria would be empty. When I first started, you couldn't even find a seat in the cafeteria. Yeah. Commissary, I apologize, commissary. And I was telling it to my daughter just not long ago. I says, I used to have breakfast. I would get pancakes, eggs, and toast and tea for $2.
Nice.
That's just because it was funded a little bit by the company.
Subsidized.
Right.
Come on. I used to have fresh turkey cut, fresh roast beef sandwiches for like $1. You can't beat that with a stick, man. Everybody ate there. And you would go through the day. One day I walked through just sitting there. And this is actually one of the days because I was working on Letterman. Bob Hope was sitting at a table. And I'm sitting there. And it's just, you first look, you're like, Bob Hope. But then it's like, you can't keep looking. And that's it. I mean, that's it. No one stared. Everybody just people would walk by the table, look down, he'd look up, and you just keep going.
Right.
That's the way it was. I mean, I've seen so many, just in our commissary having a cup of coffee is Bob Hope. And did I tell you they used to be, if you came in off the west side, I just have to look at my phone a second. So I have things going on in the Bronx in one of my buildings. I apologize for this. That's not you. And, oh boy, let's see what the hell that is. This was found behind the refrigerator. Oh boy. I'm going to have lunch one day. There was a restaurant when you first come in off of 6th Avenue. There was a card store right when you walked in, then around the corner was a little diner. Every now and then some people would just go there and have soup or a nice pastrami sandwich or something. And I'd always see Tony Randall sitting way in the back.
Really?
Yeah. And I used to look and I'm like, wow, Tony Randall. So one day I had a table near him and I was eating and I was looking. I said, hi, Mr. Randall. And he looked at me, he goes, how are you? And I said, very good. And he saw I had either Letterman jacket or something. He goes, oh, you work on Letterman? I said, yeah. I said, I work here at NBC. He goes, oh, very nice. Right. What do you do? And I told him, I said, I'll let you go. Enjoy lunch. I'm very sorry. He said, no, it's quite all right. So I said, okay. So then that happened. That was all good. Another day I go down there and I'm like, anywhere else? She goes, yeah. She goes, actually, we just have one table left. She goes, if you don't mind sitting way in the back. I was like, no. So I sit there and I realized that's the cubicle or whatever bench that Randall used to sit in. So I'm like, no big deal. So now I'm just waiting. I'm having my chicken soup and I'm getting a sandwich. And all of a sudden here, and I look up and it's him. He goes, you realize you're sitting in my table. And I go, they put me, he goes, so may I sit with you? I go, you sit with me, you can have the whole table, man. And we end up having lunch. Tony, and we talked about The Odd Couple, and it was just amazing.
It was just a magical place. You never know who you're going to bump into.
You just don't know what's going to happen. And I mean, when you meet certain people, you just don't ask for their autograph. Just leave it alone.
Never. Right.
All my autographs, I had pages get them. Because I couldn't get them. The pages could get them, but I actually do have a couple. I have Milton Berle that says to Mike and everything like that. And I posted on Facebook, and I don't know because we're friends. I don't know if we're still friends, if we're friends on Facebook, but maybe through Randy, when Eddie Van Halen died, I posted a picture of me and Eddie Van Halen.
Oh, wow.
And back then I had a big mustache and And all my friends, they're like, "Hey, that's a pretty cool picture, but where are you?" Because I see Eddie Van Halen, and I see what did he say? I see Super Mario. I don't see you. I was like, "Oh, you ass." But I had my '80s porn mustache, but that's okay.
Oh my God, that's so funny.
And but you just know not to, and a guy like that, he's too decent to ask for that. He's
Right.
just the idea that we shared that 20 minutes, half hour, that was everything to me.
That's
As soon as I got home, maybe probably as soon as I got upstairs, I was like calling my mom and my aunt, like, especially when they did, back in the day, CBS and NBC were known as the blue and red networks back in the day. And if you look that up, you'll see back in the 40s and 50s, it was called the blue and red networks. And so they used to do a show called The Show of Shows.
I've
Sid
heard of
Caesar,
that.
Milton, Sid Caesar,
Right,
all these guys.
yeah,
So we did a reunion in around 82, 84. We did a reunion. We brought them all back. So we had autographs from every single one of them.
Wow.
Milton Berle, Sid Caesar, George Burns, like they're all there. I had every single one of them.
That's awesome. That is awesome.
To me, like, those people will always be somebody.
Oh,
yeah.
You were talking about Dean Martin when we first started talking about the podcast.
I met him in California.
And yeah, I mean, like, that's my guy too. Like, I like Frank. I didn't know the bad stories you heard, but I like I love those guys. There's something about it. You know what too? When I was a kid, right? I remember the Jerry Lewis Marathon.
Sure.
My brother was on that show. My brother was on that show because my brother had cerebral palsy. My brother had cerebral palsy. Actually, no. Jerry Lewis did the he did the muscular dystrophy.
Right.
He did the muscular dystrophy. There was another one for the cerebral palsy telethon, and I forgot the guy that used to do that thing. But my parents brought my brother there when he was much younger, and they put him in a little pool, and they poured money over my brother.
Wow.
That was it was a thing, because he couldn't really technically walk or talk. So, he was very.
But those guys were always on that show. Dean Martin always did a guest spot. Sammy Davis, like all Milton Berle, like they would all. That would Labor Day weekend. I always look forward to that every single year.
And that's those guys. Like I tell my kids, I'm like, 30 years from now, it's going to be like Justin who,
right?
Lady who.
Yeah.
It's like this is not going to be, there's only very few actors that are on TV that
it's different.
20, 30 years from now, you'll mention it. Somebody's going to know. I think somebody like Mark Wahlberg, you'll know.
Yeah.
Who he is.
You'll know.
Take,
but the other thing too is when you got 3 channels or 4 channels, your audience is so much larger. I mean, if you were on Johnny Carson, like everyone knew you were on Johnny Carson. You know what I mean? Or you were, if you were on a television show, the numbers, you go back and look at the numbers some of those shows got in the 70s, they're enormous. Like there's no one's ever getting those numbers again.
No.
Yeah, now any 2 knuckleheads can do a podcast. So
I mean, check this out.
And they can invite a has-been on their show.
Oh, stop, Mike. You're worldwide right now. Listen, Mike, on a serious note, though, like we took a lot of your time here. I don't want to, I know
that's
you got a lot
all cool.
to do.
I love talking about it because it was a time in my life. If I could turn back, I'd go back.
Sounds great.
I love my kids and everything else, but it's just.
It sounds magic.
One thing you had asked me is like, we talk about some of the. I was still there interning, and when I worked there, I was still on Saturday Night Live in '80, and Belushi was still there, and Aykroyd was still there, and it was pretty wild.
Yeah, I mean, you're like a fly on the wall seeing history.
We had reading at a big desk, and we literally just going by. Just coke. People would own coke, man. It was crazy.
Wow.
It was crazy. I mean, but there was fun things. I mean, we had elevator operators, and I was going to the credit union, and I was jumping on the elevator up to the next floor. I could have just taken the stairs, but I was going to 8H, and the door opens, and Belushi is actually operating the elevator. He's sitting in the chair, and he's pulling the gate. And he looks at, and he's like, no one can get on. Then he looks at me. He's like, don't I know you? I was like, and then I turn around. I have my jacket. And he goes, you work on the show? I was like, yeah. He goes, oh, you're on. And then he let all the pretty girls on. And all these business guys with their suits with the big knots back in the 80s, right? And everybody had that big fat tie. I was like, no, you can't get on. And he would let people on and off that he wanted. Nowadays, forget about it, man. Between corporate, he'd be fired in 10 seconds. They don't care how funny he is.
Right.
Stuff would never, ever happen again. Those days they're gone, man.
But you were there, you saw it. And,
I was there.
You saw these great stories, and we really appreciate you sharing it with our audience.
That's
because
cool.
when I met you, and we just had a great afternoon. I mean, it was just like one of those. Sometimes you meet someone, you're like, did I know this guy? Like you just hit it off. You have a great conversation, and I met your lovely wife too, and your daughter was there that day, and I just in the back of my mind, I was like, he's got to share these stories. Like the people got to hear.
Yeah, these are great.
Yeah, they were good times. I mean, like again, it's Saturday Night Live is still what it is, but it's corporate now. It's just very corporate. I'm sure there's things that go on, but it's a whole nother world. And I told somebody else too. I mean, when I first started, they were looking at me and they're like, 10 or 15. I was like, and they're looking at, no, 15, 10. So at the end of the year, food was always there. That was the thing, we'd have a break. There'd always be donuts and coffee, and then lunchtime there'd be hot and cold trays, and this. You would never ever, because anytime something was going wrong, director would be like, take 5. You go get a cup of coffee, and there's a bagel. Take 10, and then there's lunch, and then you're having a coffee, and then you have another tea. I had teas and a bagel, tea and a chocolate muffin. So the 10 or 15 was how many pounds you think the new guy is going to gain the first year. And mine was close to 15. The first year it was close to 15. And my friend looked at me, he patted me on the stomach. He goes, 10 or 15. I go, what the hell are you talking about? He goes, how many pounds did you gain this season? I go, I don't know. He goes, about 10, 15. I said, oh, that's what you meant? He goes, yep, you're the new guy. They knew because the food was there. I mean, you can't help yourself. And then the next season, it's like, the hell with it. You just sit down, you just chill out by the camera, sit there, but you're going in. It's like, I can keep eating? You mean the food's free? I'm putting them in my pocket and stuff. I'm hoarding them like I'm homeless. But, that was the way it was. That was the joke, 10 or 15. But it was fun back then. It was really, it'll never be like that. To me, it'll never be like that again. Even if the show is going on now, I'm sure it's not the same. And I've been back to the show with my wife. It's not. I've been backstage. We went to see McCartney, and he walked right by us. But even just everything that goes on, it's not the same. There's cameras in the hall now, watching everything that the staff is doing. There's there's security cam. Everything is just. Yeah. There was nothing back then. There was nothing.
You were at the perfect place, the perfect time, saw history, experienced a lot of it. I mean, contributed to it. I mean, it's an awesome story, and I mean, it's a great life, and we just really appreciate you sharing all these stories with our audience. Thank you so much.
Great. It was fun. It was fun. The one thing you said is about language and this and that, and I told you, I'm still old school.
All right,
you have George Carlin's 7 dirty words that you can't say, right?
Right.
And now it's like, they get say anything they want, especially on cable. But even on, the big thing was NYP. If you remember NYPD Blue, when they had the shower scene and things like that, was like, what? Or they said ass, like what? He said what? It was just not like that. It was a different humor.
It was different times. It was different times.
And the humor was different.
I remember when Howard Stern went to satellite radio, and of course they could curse, right? And like in the beginning, it was curse. Then all of a sudden they dialed it back a little bit, I think. And I was, after experiencing both of it, I was like, there was a little bit of humor in not saying it, but yet meaning it. But not using the word. It was really a very good. I like that a lot. I like the new show. I like the new show too. But what I was thinking about was how much different it was before you could use foul language. But yet you had to be very creative more
Yeah,
creative.
it's
Good
kind
point.
of, I mean, like to me, I think I have thrown something on Facebook. There was I didn't see it because now I don't even watch Saturday Night Live. Because sometimes it's like not even funny. I'm like, it's
Right,
not
right,
worth
right,
it.
right, right.
But every now and then, like a skit pops up, and I don't know what happened. I was looking at something on YouTube, and it was when John Bon Jovi was on the show, and they had Chris Kattan and everything, and they did a thing called the New Jersey Game Show. You have to check that out. Google or YouTube New Jersey Game Show SNL.
Right, right.
And the show is called it's with Bill Hader, and he is
okay.
funny.
Yeah,
And
Bill
that's
is
the name of
funny.
the game show. It's called so they're doing something. Whenever something happens that you don't like, you go like a Jersey guy. And it was the funniest thing. It really was. I was like, this is the funniest skit I've seen in a long time.
There are some good ones.
And it's every now and then they come off with a good one, or with what's the name? They did Sweaty Balls. If you remember that, right? I mean, that's humorous. But
Right.
I don't know.
Right.
I don't know. It's could be.
It
It's
is what it
about
is.
the writing. It's the writing.
You know what I think too? I think everything is so segmented too, and it's hard to stay on top of. 1980. It's hard to be 40 years. You're gonna have 40 great seasons. It's tough, and they have ebb and flows. And I mean,
It's 45 years that show.
45 years.
I think
My
1975. 1975.
Wow, Jesus.
Yeah. So somewhere I actually have my 40th jacket somewhere too.
Wow.
Because I went to the show, so I went to the
40th
40th show. Yeah.
Right.
They invited everybody back.
That was
I got
nice.
a 40th jacket, but somewhere I keep because this is the one that's I told you if you look up cheeseburger, one of them, I'm in the background.
Oh
I'm
wow.
in one of the booths and I do like a little fill in, yeah. So that's what I say, just like that. That's I tell you, I was we used to do the singing next to this we'd sing Christmas carols. And they'd air it during Christmas time, and everybody's singing.
Yeah. I remember those
right.
commercials.
I was on a train one day coming home, and some woman looks at me and goes, "Aren't you on the commercial for?" I looked. I was like, "Excuse me," and she knew my face because there was only a couple of people that they picked out, and of course I was standing next to Scarborough and everything. So of course you saw me,
Right.
So I knew I was standing next to talent. They're going to be on, so I'm going to be on.
Absolutely, absolutely.
I was with the news, so I knew I was going to get on. But this woman picked me out and knew. She goes, "Who are you?" I was like, "How the hell does she even know who I am?"
Right.
Like, how could you? I don't pay attention to that stuff. When I watch movies, I pick things out.
I do it all the time. I pick stuff out in the background, locations. I'm always good at that.
I see things like when they'll do a car crash in a scene, and then the car is chasing it again, and the car has no dents. How did that just happen? There was a movie called Bobby Jean or something like that. It was supposed to be about a guy and a girl back in the 50s. And then they date and whatever. And so at the end of the movie, they're driving up Hollywood Boulevard. And it's supposed to be like 1950 or 1960, something like that. And as they do a wide shot of all of the boulevard, and you see all these billboards, there's like a 77 Camaro on the billboard. I was like, wait a minute, it's supposed to be 1960.
It's coming, future.
You got to look at that stuff,
I know. That's tough. That's funny. Well, listen, Mike, we really appreciate you coming on the show.
I had a great time.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, it was nice
Really
meeting you guys. It was.
Absolutely. Well, thank everyone for the coming on, and remember to scroll down, hit the like button, hit the share button. We're trying to build a little bit of an audience here. Really appreciate it. And once again, thanks for joining us. Help me. I'm middle-aged, and we'll see you guys next time.
Excellent.